Have you ever noticed someone who never posts pictures online? No selfies, no celebrations, no updates? In a world that rewards attention and punishes silence, these people almost seem invisible. They are the ghosts in the machine, watching the chaos of the digital age from a safe, untouchable distance. While everyone else is busy performing their happiness, these individuals are living it in total silence. But psychology says this behavior isn't random, and it certainly isn't just shyness. It actually reveals a sophisticated level of confidence, mindset, and emotional intelligence that most people will never achieve. Stay with me because we are about to decode the real psychology behind the people who don't post and why their silence is actually their greatest power. 1. The architecture of privacy over popularity. Psychologists suggest that people who rarely post pictures tend to have what is called a high privacy orientation. This isn't about having secrets, it's about having standards. In the digital era, information is the ultimate currency, and these individuals refuse to spend it on strangers. They value control over what others see, hear, and think about them. They aren't antisocial, they are simply masters of their own mental space. While the average person seeks a hit of dopamine through likes and comments, the silent observer relies on self-validation. They don't need 1,000 strangers to approve of their vacation for the sun to feel warm on their skin. This is a subtle yet undeniable sign of deep inner security. But why is this so rare today? It's because we've been conditioned to believe that if a moment wasn't captured and shared, it didn't happen. The silent person rejects this lie, proving that the most valuable parts of life are the ones that can't be cropped into a square. 2. The science of high self-concept clarity. Research on self-concept clarity shows that people who share less online often have a much stronger sense of who they actually are. They don't need the mirror of social media to tell them they are attractive, successful, or happy. They know their values, their goals, and what truly matters to them without needing a digital jury to deliberate on their worth. This clarity makes them immune to the comparison trap that destroys so many lives. They don't chase trends because their identity isn't for sale. Their happiness doesn't depend on how an algorithm reacts to their face. It comes from an internal source that never runs dry. Think about the energy it takes to maintain a digital persona. The silent person saves that energy and reinvests it into real-world growth. They aren't looking at their life through a lens. They are looking at it through their own eyes. 3. The shield of emotional security. Posting less is often linked to secure self-esteem, a type of confidence that doesn't need external attention to survive. People with fragile self-esteem post selfies to prove their worth, seeking a temporary fix for their deep-seated insecurities. But the silent person feels complete without the digital applause. Psychologists say that individuals with this kind of emotional balance are significantly less anxious, less approval-seeking, and more focused on tangible, real-world achievements. They understand that external validation is a drug that requires higher and higher doses to work. By opting out of the like economy, they protect their nervous system from the highs and lows of social feedback. They aren't hiding, they are simply standing on solid ground, while everyone else is walking on the shifting sands of public opinion. 4. The power of the internal locus of evaluation. People who stay quiet online are often more introspective. They operate from what psychology calls an internal locus of evaluation. This means they judge themselves by their own personal standards, not the standards of a feed. They think deeply before they speak, and they post only when something genuinely matters. This trait is common among high performers and deep thinkers. They prefer authentic, face-to-face conversations over superficial digital interactions. They know that a like is a poor substitute for a handshake, and a comment is a shadow of a real conversation. While others are busy showing off a life they barely have time to live, the silent person is busy building a life that is too good to be interrupted by a notification. They understand that the more you explain your life to others, the less you are actually experiencing it for yourself. 5. They understand the digital illusion. Many of these people know how easily social media can distort reality. Psychologists call this social comparison theory, where people constantly measure their worth against others' highlight reels. By staying low-key, they protect their mental health from that endless comparison cycle. They choose peace over performance. They know that behind every perfect dinner photo is often a cold meal and a forced smile. They refuse to be part of the theater. This awareness gives them a massive advantage in social intelligence. While everyone else is easily manipulated by digital trends, the silent person remains grounded in what is real. They understand that the most important parts of a human life are the ones that happen in the dark, in the quiet, and in the private moments of genuine connection. 6. The mystery advantage and social power. There is a profound psychological concept known as the scarcity principle. In human dynamics, things that are rare are perceived as more valuable. By not sharing every detail of their lives, these individuals maintain an air of mystery that commands respect. While everyone else is an open book, they are a locked vault. This creates a powerful social dynamic. Because you don't know everything about them, you are forced to pay closer attention when they actually do speak. Psychologists observe that people who are private are often perceived as more competent and more powerful. They don't leak their energy through constant digital broadcasting. Instead, they contain it. They understand that in a world of overexposure, being a mystery is the ultimate social cheat code. When you don't show your hand, your enemies can't predict your moves, and your friends value your presence more because it isn't something they can just scroll through on a screen. 7. Protection against narcissistic supply. Many people who refuse to post are subconsciously, or even consciously, protecting themselves from the narcissistic trap. Social media is the primary hunting ground for narcissists, seeking supply, which is the attention, admiration, or even the envy of others. When you post your wins, your relationships, or your vulnerabilities, you are giving toxic individuals a map of your soul. The silent ones understand that digital silence is a form of armor. By not providing data, they don't provide targets. They don't give anyone the satisfaction of seeing them fail, and they don't give anyone the fuel to feel jealous of their success. This is a high-level psychological boundary. They have realized that the most peaceful life is the one where nobody has an opinion on your personal business. They don't need the world to validate their joy, and they certainly don't need the world to witness their pain. 8. The mastery of deep work and focus. In the psychology of peak performance, we talk about cognitive switching penalty. Every time you stop what you're doing to take a photo, edit it, write a caption, and check the likes, you are fracturing your focus. People who don't share their lives online are often much better at achieving flow states. They can commit hours to a single task, a book, a project, a conversation, without the nagging urge to interrupt the moment for a digital audience. This gives them a massive competitive edge. While the rest of the world has a decimated attention span, the silent person is building a deep work muscle. They aren't just living life, they are mastering it. Their brain isn't being rewired for 15-second clips. It is being wired for long-term vision. They understand that you cannot build a masterpiece if you are constantly stopping to show the world the sketches. 9. They reject the commodity of the self. There is a disturbing psychological shift happening in 2026 where people have started to view themselves as brands rather than human beings. When you post constantly, you are essentially marketing yourself. Those who stay quiet refuse to be commodified. They reject the idea that their personal life should be content. Psychologists call this authenticity preservation. By keeping their personal life off the internet, they ensure that their private moments remain pure and uncorrupted by the need for external approval. They aren't trying to sell you a lifestyle, they are just living one. This allows them to stay connected to their true self instead of getting lost in a performative self. They know that once you start living for the camera, you start losing your soul to the algorithm. 10. The strength of the silent witness. People who don't post are often the most observant people in any room. Because they aren't focused on being seen, they are experts at seeing. They notice the shifts in body language, the unspoken tensions, and the hidden truths that others miss because they are too busy checking their notifications. In psychology, we call this environmental awareness. This makes them incredibly socially intelligent. They are the ones who know exactly what is going on while everyone else is distracted by the digital noise. They are the silent witnesses of their own lives. They don't need to shout to be important. They are important because they are the only ones truly paying attention. They have realized that the quietest person in the room is often the one with the most information. 11. The psychology of emotional self-regulation. Most people use social media as an emotional crutch. When they feel sad, they post for sympathy. When they feel happy, they post for applause. But those who remain silent have mastered the art of internal regulation. They don't outsource their emotions to a crowd of followers. If they are hurting, they process that pain privately or with a trusted circle. If they are winning, they sit with that satisfaction themselves. Psychologists call this affective independence. It is the ability to maintain emotional stability without needing a digital feedback loop. By not sharing, they keep their emotional power contained. They don't let the internet dictate how they should feel about their own lives. This makes them incredibly resilient. While others are crushed when a post doesn't get enough likes, the silent person remains unmoved because their emotional state was never up for a public vote. 12. They value quality over quantity in connection. There is a concept in sociology known as Dunbar's number, which suggests we can only maintain a limited number of stable social relationships. People who don't post their personal lives online have embraced this limitation. They aren't interested in parasocial relationships, the illusion of connection with hundreds of strangers. They invest their energy into high-density connections. They would rather have a 3-hour dinner with one real friend than 3,000 likes from people who wouldn't help them move house. This is a sign of high social intelligence. They understand that digital attention is empty calories for the soul. By staying quiet online, they preserve their social energy for the people who actually matter. Their circle is small, but it is solid. They aren't famous, but they are loved. 13. The rejection of digital envy and comparison. When you post your life, you are voluntarily entering a social comparison arena. You are comparing your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reels. The people who stay low-key have realized that this is a game where the only way to win is not to play. Psychologists observe that these individuals have much lower levels of relative deprivation, the feeling that you are lacking something because you see others having it. Because they aren't constantly broadcasting their status, they aren't constantly measuring it against others. They are contentment architects. They build a life they enjoy living, not a life that looks good to others. This leads to a much higher level of life satisfaction. They don't need to keep up with the Joneses because they aren't even looking at the Joneses' feed. 14. Mastery of the present moment awareness. There is a neurological cost to documenting your life. When you take a photo of a sunset, your brain actually stops processing the sunset itself and starts processing the task of photography. This is known as the photo-taking impairment effect. People who don't post are the only ones truly there. Their memories are stored in their neurons, not in a cloud server. They experience life in high definition because their focus isn't fractured. They feel the texture of the moment, the smell of the air, and the nuance of the conversation. They are sensory participants. While everyone else is experiencing a simulated reality through their screens, the silent person is experiencing the raw reality of the world. This makes their life experience much richer and more vivid than those who are constantly distracted by the need to capture and share. 15. The freedom of not having a personal brand. In 2026, the pressure to be a brand is a form of psychological slavery. You have to be consistent, you have to be curated, and you have to be on. The people who don't share their personal lives have chosen freedom over branding. They allow themselves the luxury of being inconsistent. They can change their minds, they can have a bad day, and they can evolve without having to explain it to an audience. They don't have to worry about brand consistency. They are human beings, not products. This allows for much higher levels of neuroplasticity and personal growth. They aren't trapped by an old version of themselves that is archived on a grid. They are free to disappear and reinvent themselves as many times as they want. They are the masters of their own evolution. 20. Real confidence doesn't need to be seen. Finally, the most important truth about people who don't share their lives online is that they don't need to be seen to feel seen. They have a solid core that is independent of public perception. They know that attention is not the same as connection, and visibility is not the same as value. They are grounded in their own reality, their own skin, and their own soul. They are the ones who are truly connected, not to a Wi-Fi signal, but to the actual breathing world around them. They don't need to post their pictures because they're too busy living the moments that those pictures could never truly capture. And that is the ultimate definition of real confidence. Next time you notice someone who doesn't post their pictures or their personal updates, don't assume they're shy, boring, or antisocial. They might just be more grounded, emotionally intelligent, and self-aware than anyone else in your feed. They've figured out the game, and they've chosen to win it by staying quiet. If you love understanding the hidden forces that drive human behavior, and you're ready to stop just scrolling and start decoding, hit subscribe now. On this channel, we don't just follow the crowd, we analyze why the crowd is following. Stop performing your life for an audience that isn't really watching, and start living it for the one person who is. I'll see you in the next deep dive into the human mind.